watching The End Zone, sponsored by Lucky Star Casino.
With only 2 weeks to go in the regular season of college football, it is another edition of The End Zone. I'm Colby Daniels, along with my co-host TJ Eckert, and joining us from 24/7 Sports, Josh Callaway this week. Gentlemen, it is Alabama week for Oklahoma and the final home game of the season. Josh, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the invite.
I made the joke, and you made it as well. I think it's the first time I've seen you without a hat on.
That is true. That's very true. Don't do a lot of TV these days.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't have to shed the hat often. But for this, we'll make an exception.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Obviously, this season hasn't gone as many Sooner fans hoped it would go.
Sure.
It's been a rocky road. But I think when the season began, everybody circled the Alabama week, right? You're talking about beyond anything that's taken place in 2024, you're talking about two of the blue bloods, the true blue bloods that can't be argued in college football meeting on one field.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, they've only played 6 times previously. They've only come to Norman one other time. You know, and obviously, last time the Orange Bowl with Kyler and Tua going toe-to-toe, and CeeDee Lamb had that massive game against Patrick Surtain, and then the Sugar Bowl with Trevor Knight the time before that, obviously. So seems like when they two get together, it's always kind of cool. Feels like an event. So that's cool.
This is the game that you mentioned, circle. I think OU fans and media or whatever, when you join the SEC, this is the game or the games that you sign up for when you join the league, right? And this is what makes this league so exciting is instead of getting, not to throw teams under the bus, but instead of getting Baylor coming to Norman or whatever, you get Alabama coming to Norman. Like that, I think that's cool. And regardless of the records, the atmosphere should be great. And the vibes should be good around Norman. It should be a fun time.
And you felt that against Tennessee, too.
Yeah.
It was just a different energy. I expected to be about like that again.
Well, they've got to get a win, right, if they're going to play a bowl game this season. I don't know if that's going to happen against Alabama or next week on the road against LSU, but you're playing your final home game of the season. Maybe that adds a little to the motivation. Alabama on its own should add a ton to the level of motivation. My biggest question is, how does this offense score points against an Alabama defense that is arguably as good in the front seven as anybody Oklahoma's faced?
Well, I got to find a way to take care of the football. I mean, that sounds like a broken record, but that's been the biggest problem all season long is Oklahoma just has been a turnover machine all season against Missouri. In particular, the fumbles. Jackson Arnold just 3 fumbles. 2 of them obviously lost. The one at the end was the deciding play in the game. So they're going to have any shot. They got to find a way to run the football, control the clock, and please stop giving the opposing offense short fields or just scores outright on defensive touchdowns. That's the only way they're going to have a shot.
I didn't look recent, but the week before, OU led the country in fumbles lost. I would imagine they're probably still leading, or at least near the bottom. It was at 13 after the Mizzou game, I believe, which is just way too many. I mean, that's it. That's a serious problem. To me, you bring up a good point. Being able to run the ball. We saw it late in the Mizzou game, bringing Xavier Robinson in. Shout out Carl Albert. Did a great job. To me, he's a guy that just runs through trash well. And with this offensive line, there's a lot of trash, right? And so that's a guy, Javonte Barnes, there's a reason he's having success too, is because both those guys can run physically through, I'm calling it trash.
Sure. Yeah, no, 100%. And, the run game, it's been something that since they made the switch from Seth Luttrell to Joe John Finley, it's gotten going a little bit.
Sure.
And Javonte Barnes had that massive game against Maine. We haven't seen him since. His status up in the air. But, no, I agree. I mean, you're going to have to run the football to win this game. And Xavier Robinson, we like what we've seen. They said they're going to burn his red shirt. So if you're going to burn it, use them. Give him a lot of carries.
That's right. They've not had much success in the throwing game all year long. They've given up a ton of sacks. In fact, I think they lead the country in sacks given up per game. And you're facing an Alabama front seven again that is incredibly athletic and aggressive. So switching gears to the OU defense, I mean, I don't want to put the game on them, but they can't allow this thing to get out of hand, right? They've got to at least keep this OU offense in the game early, because once you get behind, right, and you have to start throwing the football, that's the recipe for disaster.
100%. I think it's paramount that Oklahoma gets off to a good start in this game. I mean, the fans, we talked about it a little bit, the energy and the atmosphere should be great, but with the way the season has gone, I think they can get taken out of the game really quick on Saturday. So, yes, not letting Jalen Milroe just run around all over the place, try to find a way to get some early stops, maybe a turnover of your own, let the offense try to get you a lead, get some belief going in that place. is going to be really, really important.
I made the point, I talked with somebody, this is probably the first true dual threat quarterback. I know Sellers of South Carolina would be
Sure.
Jackson Dart.
Yeah, but really,
yeah.
This is probably the first true test in that regard, don't you think, for the OU
No,
defense?
100%. Yeah, Lenore Sellers probably the only other. And you saw even, and he's not a dual threat, but you saw what Drew Pine did to Oklahoma with his legs late in the game. That was a huge X factor, so that scares you for this matchup.
Don't you dare.
Control-Alt-Delete.
Don't disrespect Drew Pine. Don't do
Drew
that.
Pine.
Yeah, that was, the way he executed late was bad.
Interesting stat, 17-year-old Ryan Williams, who I think everybody who follows college football nationally is aware of.
Yeah.
He has more touchdown receptions this year than the entire OU wide receiver room.
Yeah,
That
and I
doesn't sound
believe
good.
that's not even like shocking to hear.
Yeah,
Like that,
sure.
that sounds about right.
Checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it checks out. Yeah, the defense will be key for me just because you mentioned getting off to a good start. We've seen them get off to good starts at home.
Yeah.
And the crowd stays in it. The Tennessee game, they were in it for quite a long time. So hopefully that happens again this weekend.
100%. And that was a bit of an issue in the middle of the season where South Carolina first possession after the turnover, they went and scored. You saw that even Maine went down the field and scored to
They
start
did
the
do that,
game.
yeah.
They bounced back against Missouri. They were excellent most of the night until the fourth quarter. It kind of started to wilt a little. So, yeah, you're going to need to bring it early and often if you're going to have a shot to stay in this thing.
In Stillwater, two of the worst defenses in the country are going to meet up. Now, OSU's offense isn't as consistent as the Tech offense. Sixth leading rusher in the country in Taj Brooks, and Oklahoma State has the worst rushing defense in the country. That's not a good recipe.
No, and as bad as we think things are with OU, I know you cover OU pretty much exclusively. As bad as it is in Norman, like it's even worse than Stillwater.
Yeah. No, somehow it is. The Pokes being 3-0 feels like a lifetime ago, basically.
It did happen.
You would hope that, the mindset here, I think for Oklahoma State, last home game, you're almost certainly not going to win in Boulder next week. I mean, crazy things have happened. So this is your last shot to just try and get something positive for the end of the season, a win. So, yeah, you're not going to the bowl. Obviously, you've already lost that shot. So this is kind of your last, let's do something on the way out to feel good about it. We'll see.
7 straight losses. I looked it up, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong. They've never lost 8 games in a row consecutively. They've lost 7 games in a row and had a tie in there as well.
Oh, wow.
But they've never lost 8 straight games in the same season, maybe carrying in between seasons.
Yeah.
They've never lost 8 straight games in the same season, which is,
unreal.
It should be that way. You should never lose 8 games in a row.
Yeah.
But you're on the verge of doing that for the first time, which is bad history.
I have zero expectation the defense is going to do anything, right?
Yeah.
I think Tech is going to have a lot of success offensively.
Do what they want.
But in the final game at home for Brennan Presley, probably Ollie Gordon, DeJon Stribling, the offense has to rise to the occasion.
Bowman playing against his former team, too. I don't know if that's going to have any motivation or not.
Alan Bowman revenge game. You heard it here first.
There it is. I mean, that was like 2014, it seems like, for Bowman. He's been here forever.
Ago. I think he went against Baker. I'm pretty sure. Baker and Mayfield. I'm almost certain he did, actually.
That's bizarre to even think about that.
Yeah, you might be. I think he might have come in the year after Baker transferred. So
you're
probably
That's
not far
outrageous.
off.
That's
probably
outrageous.
not far off.
Yeah.
All right, we've got to take a time out. The college football playoff bracket is out. Still some national controversy. We'll discuss it next on the End Zone. All right, guys, it is week 3 of the college football playoff rankings being announced and us projecting what the college football playoff bracket would look like. Before I get your takes on what the seeding would look like this week, I got to throw a couple things at you. Number 1, are you on board with Indiana perhaps sitting their starting quarterback, therefore giving them a better chance to ultimately land one of these coveted spots inside the bracket?
You first? What do you think?
No.
Yeah, no. That's a no.
That's ridiculous.
Come
No,
on.
absurd. Their best bet is to just
Win.
put up a good, obviously win,
They'll win.
but at least put up a good effort there in
You
Columbus.
play to win the game.
Yes, 100%.
Who was that? Joey Galloway who said?
Joey Galloway, if you didn't already, quit listening to him,
In
this
his
might be the time.
Not that I'm going to defend him, but that's kind of the precedent that they set last year a little bit with Florida State, right? If Jordan Travis just hadn't gotten hurt.
But if you're deliberately holding out a quarterback, nobody is going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Different
there.
scenario.
Friend of the program, Eddie Radosevich says, #that's my JoJo. So that's
my
Joey
JoJo.
Galloway.
Yeah.
Joey
That
Galloway.
is perfect use for it right there.
Yeah, it is, man. You don't sit your starting quarterback. There's a chance they win.
One of the biggest games in program history this weekend.
No doubt. I'm not
understand it.
agreeing with him. Just
Yeah.
that's kind of almost poking holes in the
Devil's advocate,
committee's
almost.
logic
Yeah.
from a year ago.
Fair enough.
Yeah, just go fight, and maybe you lose a close game, and you still get the benefit.
You
of the
brought
doubt.
it up, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but right now there's no SEC teams with a home game, right?
That's right.
With the current way it's laid out, you see it down there at the bottom there with Penn State, Georgia, and then obviously Indiana, Ole Miss. You got Notre Dame, Bama. So if there's any adjustments that need to be made to the playoff, you mentioned Greg Sankey just like throwing a nuke on it and blowing it up. That's probably what would end up happening. Is like there's no way that the SEC doesn't get a home game, right?
I would be shocked if when the dust settles, there's not an SEC home game. But as it stands right here, if this were to be the final ranking, there is no way that Greg Sankey goes into the offseason and says he's happy with the current setup of this 12-team playoff. Yeah. The other thing I've got to bring up, as we saw a little bit of a shakeup last week, the projected Big 12 champion right now is still BYU, the highest-ranked team for the committee.
Right.
They're in the 12 spot. There's a realistic scenario, and the most likely scenario would be Army beating Notre Dame and then winning the American Athletic Conference and potentially jumping BYU, Boise State being the other non-Power 4 conference champion. Right. There's a scenario where the Big 12 champion doesn't get into this bracket.
I think it's totally in play, to be totally honest, because the Big 12, it's cannibalizing itself. Kansas has just been knocking everybody out. They could do it again this weekend. Yeah, if Boise State wins out, they have a very good shot to be that where they're at right now, number 4.
Only losses to number 1 Oregon.
In a close game, in a competitive game.
Yeah.
And then, whether it's Tulane or Army, obviously, like you said, Colby, most likely is if Army wins out. But I think even if Tulane wins out with a close loss to Kansas State and then they lost to Norman to Oklahoma in a competitive game, they're going to have an argument depending on what happens in the rest of the Big 12. So I don't think it's out of their own possibility at all. I think there's a very real chance the Big 12 doesn't get anybody in this thing, which is nuts.
If that logo was Oklahoma State's logo, would it make a difference? I mean, obviously this year, no, they have 3 wins. But like in a normal year, if that's OSU's logo, does that make a difference to the committee?
It probably helps just because there's been a certain level of consistency over the past decade as opposed to what BYU has done. I also think like you lose OU and Texas from the Big 12, your flagship programs, and then all the teams that everybody thought were going to be good are not good. So you have these, not that BYU's a bad brand, but you have these brands that aren't traditional powers that also had no expectation coming into the year representing the Big 12. That's not going to help.
Okay, another one. What if that logo was Colorado's logo? Would that make a difference? Because of Dion and the allure that he brings. Does that make a difference?
And, potential first-round quarterback. I think what's hurting BYU more than anything, it's an obvious statement, but they've just been getting by the skin of their teeth all year. Oklahoma State, who's having a horrible year, like everyone knows, took a miracle to win that game. Barely beat Utah, who's had a obviously disastrous season. They've skated by all year. They they beat SMU early in the year, but in a close game before they made the quarterback change. So they haven't been overly impressive, other than the fact that they just keep winning, which I guess is the idea.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be fun to continue to debate, but we got 2 more weeks before the conference championships, and then we'll find out what happens. All right, we are putting Josh Callaway in the hot seat. It is Moving the Chains next here on the End Zone. All right, it's time for this week's edition of Moving the Chains. Josh Callaway is our guest. We've never not had someone be successful in this segment, so no pressure.
Close.
No pressure. We've been very close, but nobody has failed yet. So it's a simple concept. You start with 1st and 10. We'll ask you questions. We will grade your answers with positive or negative yardage, and you have to move the chains. So simple concept.
Pressure's on.
Good luck.
All right, question number 1. Give us who you think the top 3 most likely candidates are for the OU OC job.
In order, or just somebody just going
just
3?
Just top 3 most likely.
We'll go 3 and up. I think number 3 would be Jake Spavital from Baylor.
Okay.
Has SEC background. He was at A&M for a while.
Tulsa guy.
Yeah, Tulsa guy. I think his system, maybe a quarterback could come with him at Baylor. He's playing very well in Sawyer Robertson. I think I'll go him at 3. I'll go Joe Craddock at Tulane at 2. There's a lot of Florida State interest there, but kind of similar thing. I mean, he's been very successful at the G5 level, does have some SEC background. I think that's one that makes a lot of sense. Number 1, I would go Ben Arbuckle at Washington State. I think he's, in my mind, at least the leader in the clubhouse right now. And there's still a little ways to go, but I think he makes most sense. And he has a quarterback who could live with him.
That seems fair. I agree. Those are kind of the 3 that I kept my eye on. I flipped Craddock. I like that system a little bit more than Arbuckle's system at Washington State. So I'll give you a positive game because you did a good job with the names, just in the wrong order. So we'll go 3-yard gain. So a modest gain on 1st down. You're ahead of the chain. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we're good. We're all set. Second down, this is an interesting one. Who's going to start at quarterback for OU in game 1 next season? You know, Jackson Arnold could come back. Michael Hawkins could come back. You mentioned a coordinator bringing a quarterback with him.
Yeah.
So who would you predict would be the starter in game 1?
I think most likely Oklahoma's starter for next year is not on the team right now. That's just how it kind of feels like it's gone this season, if I had to guess. And I guess I'll tie back into what I just said before with Ben Arbuckle being, I think, the favorite. So I would think that John McTeer at Washington State, those two seem like a package deal. We'll see how it shakes out. You know, NIL and who knows what else. There's a lot of factors there. But I think if I had to guess, he would be my pick for Oklahoma starting quarterback.
Jackson Arnold, when asked the question, gave us the "I'm just focused on the next 2 games," right? Which is always the statement you make when you're maybe thinking about hitting the door. So
Venables said, "I can't predict the future," right? That's his answer. So it's like we don't know anything at this point.
All right, I'm going to give you a positive gain. Let's set up 3rd and 1.
I like that.
You've got an opportunity to get the first down on
here.
3rd down here. All right, the holidays are right around the corner. Thanksgiving's next week. Best and worst Thanksgiving sides.
So best, I'm gonna go with mac and cheese. Not a real scalding take there, I don't think. I love mac and cheese. Like that's one of those. When you go to a foreign place for Thanksgiving, that's one of the first things I see is like, is this a mac and cheese household?
Okay.
Because that's not everyone. Not everywhere has mac and cheese.
That's right.
That's for me. I love some mac and cheese. My scalding hot take on the side that I hate and I can't stand it. It's all horrible. Is stuffing. Do you like stuffing?
Yes.
Everyone does.
It's a staple. What do you mean?
Hate stuffing.
Really?
Hate it. And I've been told that my grandma on my mom's side makes like the best stuffing, but I get it away from me.
I thought you were going to say turkey. You could have said maybe you don't like green bean casserole, but stuffing is just like, you only need to have it once, and it's on Thanksgiving.
Right. I don't just like.
I noticed you called it stuffing and not dressing because, you know, some people.
It's known as stuffing for me.
So there's dry stuffing and there's wet stuffing. So I guess I don't know if you like neither. You're neither.
Stuffing is supposed to be cooked in the bird, and then dressing is.
Whatever it is.
Okay, well,
it's not even like I don't like. I'm not a fan. Hate like going anywhere near
strong
me.
hate.
Like,
okay. He's not thankful for stuffing.
Here's my thing: is I will give you the credit that you have a crazy take on here, and you were very strong with it, but it was a bad take. So I'm going to say no game. So we'll go 4th and 1. We'll go 4th and 1. We got to get a first down here. This is an interesting concept here. So OU has 1 Big 12 win. OSU has 0. OSU has 1 SEC win, Arkansas. OU has 1. Who ends up with more Big 12 wins and who ends up with more SEC wins when the season ends here? What do you think?
Man, this put my brain in a pretzel.
I know. It's a hard concept.
So OU wins more Big 12 games or OSU wins more SEC games?
Yes.
Right now they're the same.
Yes.
Right? They're one each?
Technically, actually, OSU has 0 Big 12 wins.
Right.
So, in theory, OU's the leader of the clubhouse in that category. So
I got you. I guess I'll say that. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
I guess I'll say that OU wins more Big 12 games because Oklahoma State's got to go to Boulder next week. Don't feel great about that.
Yep.
And it's a coin flip. Hopefully this weekend with Texas Tech, and since OU's already got the 1 SEC game in their belt,
one feels like a substantial margin.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll give OU the nod there.
I think that's
all right. I think you're right on. We'll give you a gain of 2.
Good job.
And
Good
first
job.
down, Josh Callaway.
CeeDee Lamb.
Good
here
job.
on the end zone.
CeeDee
All right,
Lamb,
it's game picks to wrap up this week's edition of the End Zone next. All right, we got to make game picks, but before we do that, let's quickly, and I do mean quickly, take a look at last week's record because it was no good at all collectively. The overall standings, I've dropped down to 500. My boat has been leaking, and it's been slowly sinking week after week after week.
Don't listen to us.
All right, first game this week in the Big 12. Obviously, this one has big implications. Colorado, Kansas.
KU is the Big 12 playoff Grim Reaper at this point right now. I think they find a way to win another one. They're in Lawrence, so I'll take the Jayhawks.
I'm with you. The game's actually at Arrowhead, which gives me a little extra bump.
My bad. Thank you.
I'm going Kansas. I think they just, like you said, just murders row in the Big 12
magic.
right now.
Give me the Jayhawks as well for the second week in a row. The other Big 12 game with a lot of meaning this week, BYU at Arizona State.
Neither team is that good. I think BYU is a little bit better, so I'll take the Cougs on the road.
Kenny Dillingham can coach. He's got them playing really well. I like the Sun Devils in Tempe.
And give me Cam Scattaboo
in
the
best
backfield.
names.
I absolutely
awesome.
love the way he plays. I'll take Arizona State as well. All right, the biggest game in the country this weekend, Indiana at Ohio State. We'll find out if they're imposters.
Ohio State probably wins like 41-31, which is just fine because I'm getting plenty of points, so I'll take the Hoosiers.
I'm going to go with the Buckeyes to cover. I love Kurt Cignetti. Great job, but I think they get exposed a little bit in this one.
Ohio State lost All-American center Seth McLaughlin this week. I think that
that's
possibly slows down the offense a little bit. I'll take the points with Indiana. All right, Oklahoma State in their final home game of the season. hosting Texas Tech.
I keep saying this is going to be the week. This is going to be the week. This isn't. So I'll just take Tech. I'll take Tech and hope I'm wrong.
Like I said earlier, this is your chance to win a game before the year's over. I'll say spirited effort for the Pokes.
I don't know how they stopped Taj Brooks, one of the best running backs in the country, so give
either.
me Texas Tech as well. All right, and finally, Oklahoma hosting Alabama in their final home game of the season.
Reverse psychology. Bama's going to cover. That's what we're doing. Bama covers.
I don't think Oklahoma can win this game, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt to get inside the number, spirited effort, final home game.
Happen.
Danny Stutzman, those seniors. Give me the Sooners with the points.
I like that. I kind of wrestled with this one because I do think the OU defense is going to show up. They're going to be excited about this matchup against Jalen Milroe. I just don't know how OU scores enough points, and over 4 quarters, I think Alabama eventually just separates despite a good defensive performance.
Sure.
Josh, we appreciate it, man. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
For TJ Eckert and Josh Callaway, I'm Colby Daniels. Everybody have a great college football weekend.